Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turf's Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone show this evening.
Pleasant good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in this wonderful world. And I also want to say hello to my fantastic co-host, she's smiling, I see her over there, Tara Mullally, and also Mr. Chris Austin, who's on the show every week, and we appreciate you taking the time out to tune us in. We have some great guests today to learn some more about something called ResNet, and we'll get into that on the second half. But I want to say good afternoon to Miss Mullally.
Good afternoon, Mr. Star.
How you doing?
Superstar.
Well, you're the one in costume today. And I thought it was half of an M&M, but you told me it was something different.
Yeah, I dressed as an O&M today. So I wore my hard hat and my boots because safety's important.
Safety's important. And Miss Chris Austin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I don't have a Halloween costume.
Oh.
Well, one year I had a shirt, and it had a picture of Hoover Dam, and it said, "This is my dam costume." But I don't know what happened to that shirt.
We did a thing here in our little private community. We collected a bunch of candy. I mean, tons enough. We have two sections in this community. One's for older 50 and above, and the other is for younger people. The younger half, instead of everybody going to trick or treating around the neighborhoods and stuff, because it gets kind of it's a lot. We've got 72 parks here and everything else. So we put together, with a little charity thing, we do a thing called the Candy Loop. And we block off a couple streets, and we literally had 4,700 children come and get candy last weekend. It was a 3.5-hour event, and every bit of candy is gone. And it was amazing. I was wearing a costume, creepy costume, and a lot of people come back, "Oh, what a really nice costume." And I go, "What costume?" They said, "You're a costume." I said, "I'm not wearing a costume. That's just me." And so scared two little kids because they were afraid of it. It looked like a monster. And but it was great. I mean, I think it's a great thing for their neighborhood. They don't have to worry about their kids roaming to strangers' house. And all the people who live up in my area just be sat around these 2 blocks on the sidewalks, and all these kids paraded around in their costumes, and it was pretty awesome. And they're safe. And that's something we do down here, so it was pretty fun. Anyway.
So what are they going to do on Friday, then?
They're going to go back to the little... No. We have a center of town where we have like grocery stores and drugstores and stuff. We call it Main Street. And so they're going to all go there.
Okay, because my kids, I think that they almost like Halloween almost more than Christmas. And they were all about, tagging down that candy. They never missed an opportunity. They took it pretty seriously. So.
Well, they lowered it here to you had to be 13 and below to come. And the parents can bring their little kids, walk through and got candy and stuff. But it was pretty cool watching them. All the kids had fun. We even see some that came back seconds and thirds to get candy. They snuck back in the gate to come in, but that's okay. And we don't care. And we had to give wristbands away up until 2 days before, so we know how many people were coming. And even if people came and they didn't have a wristband but had their kids, we let them come through. It's all for the kids, and it's a good thing. Everybody's friendly and has a good time. We give away popcorn and candy and all kinds of stuff, and it's fun. They have pictures, photo ops, and bunch of things. So it was great. Nothing else scary in that, but it was fun. Anyway, Chris, what's going on in California? I see some interesting things that a court approved The enforcement of landmark groundwater law.
Oh, yeah. Well, remember, we've been talking about the one basin down in the San Joaquin Valley that was the first basin that got put on probation. That's the Tulare Basin. And this was because their groundwater management plan was deemed insufficient from the Department of Water Resources, so it gets, in those cases, it gets sent over to the State Water Board, who then is responsible for deciding if they're going to be on probation and collecting fees and all that sorts of things. So as soon as they got put on probation, they filed a lawsuit saying that the state didn't have authority to regulate them in this way, and the court has ruled that actually they think the state does. Now, the lawsuit is still continuing. It's not over yet, but the court has allowed the State Water Board to collect fees for the groundwater pumping, and they have to register their wells, and the State Water Board will go back to talking to the farmers, because once they filed the lawsuit, the State Water Board was very hands-off. The court said you can't continue enforcement proceedings, so they just stopped. And they actually, from my understanding, kind of stopped talking to the groundwater basin while they waited for this to play out. So now that now that it's that the court has ruled, then the State Water Board can begin its enforcement proceedings, which means that they'll have to register their wells and start paying for their extractions. And these fees are not cheap. The wells you have to register a well for $300 each, and then you have to report your extractions and pay $20 per acre foot, and this is all on top of whatever fees these farmers might be paying to their groundwater sustainability agency so that it can do things like fix the plan and get them back in, off of probation. So.
Get them back in the fold.
That's not the only stuff that's impacting GSAs right now, with the new bill to make sure that we post the board agenda, or the board members and the financial documents for GSAs in addition to just the special districts. It's all kind of more accountability and a lot more work, really. Yeah,
and there's been a lot of, that's one of the big concerns, especially with the small people in the basin, the people with domestic wells or the small farmers. They say, all these big farmers are on the board. They're the ones that are running the place. How is that going to affect me? The domestic well owners in most cases think that they're going to get screwed out of it. And there's been very little disclosure on who is running the GSA, so now they're going to have to make some more disclosures.
It's really a who are you going to sue list.
well, perhaps, it's part of, I think, pretty much most public agencies and boards and commissions. You have to provide these kinds of disclosures. So I think it's just sort of bringing them in. And I don't think it's anything that other agency boards or, entities have to provide. It's just now they have to provide it before they didn't have to. So
right.
It's never fun. But I think the State Water Board is breathing a sigh of relief, perhaps the state of California, because it looks like they're going to be able to continue to enforce SGMA, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. It's not a popular thing, but I think it's kind of a necessary thing, because we had these groundwater basins that were getting seriously depleted, and we had to cut back farming or cut back pumping, which means, unfortunately, you have to cut back farming. But, it's kind of like a bank account. If your bank account is running low and you continue to spend money like mad, then you're going to get into a problem. And that's kind of where these groundwater basins were headed. So the need for the groundwater regulation was definitely, it was really needed. And, we still have problems. Even with all the work that they've done to cut back on their pumping, we still have problems with subsidence and other things. So, the quest for groundwater management continues.
And there's ultimately the cost of the food for people too. So it's not just something that has no consequence. If we pump less and we farm less, then food gets more expensive and everything just continues to get more expensive. It's one of the reasons why so many are focused on not reducing pumping, but finding new sources or developing new sources, which sort of leads me to that desalination conversation that was on here with Edward Ring's large-scale desalination, transforming California. And I've heard desalination isn't as desirable just because of the expense involved. But I know that there's a lot of desalination plants coming online. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, we have. We've had some, like Antioch opened up a desalination plant, and what was interesting about Antioch's plant is that where they're drawing the water, it's not as salty as seawater; it's more brackish, so it doesn't take as much energy to desalinate the water, and Antioch needed it because they kind of sit there in the delta, sort of at the edge of where the fresh water and salt water combine, and it was really problematic for them with their water supply. Brackish desalination is less energy intensive and less expensive, and really when they talk about expanding desalination in the state, a lot of times there's been some interest in brackish desalination because there's groundwater basins, particularly in Southern California, inland, that are just a little too salty to be used for drinking water. But, brackish desalination could make that possible. But the problem that they have with inland brackish desalination plants is, what do you do with the brine? And that's been a huge issue. Now in Southern California, and I think this the Santa Ana region, they built what's called a brine line. So they have a pipeline that takes all the salty, because they have recycled water and other brine, all the salty brine from these processes, and it sends it down to a reclamation plant, a wastewater treatment plant that's on the coast. I think it's managed by Orange County Water District, and they're prepared for that salty brine line, and they can treat the water and release it. Most places don't have a brine line, so that makes inland desalination a little bit harder. As seawater desalination, the state has really been working on trying to make that easier. They released a report a few months ago about where was the best place to site desalination plants, coastal desalination plants, and they're working on regulations and trying to make it easier. But seawater desalination is challenging on a lot of levels for its power usage and what do you do with that brine. But technology is improving all the time, so maybe we'll get to that point. But the people down in San Diego are really having a rough time because they've had some very big water rate increases, and the city council just voted to raise rates, not as much as some felt that financially they needed to do, but
unknown participant is now joining.
I'm sorry.
More people are listening to you. They're joining in.
I know, and they leave me spellbound, speechless.
So United Water is actually using the sort of a interesting take on the desalination, just because we have a lot of seawater intrusion, and I know that's another issue that the coastal cities are dealing with, is how to deal with the seawater intrusion kind of coming in. And so they want to build an extraction barrier, which will, of course, pump up the brackish water, which eventually they want to treat, but it will create a barrier to additional seawater intrusion, because the water will be drawn from both sides, both kind of the lower quality fresh water meeting the seawater to sort of create that stop. It's really interesting kind of new technology, leveraging some older technological advances, and they're actually working with the Navy to make that happen, which is kind of super interesting. But it's in that same space of like, what do you do with the resulting 3,500 acre feet if you're pulling that out? What happens with that? Do you put it back in the lagoon? Do you treat it? Where does it go? Those are all really fascinating questions, and especially in San Diego, which is what you were talking about with their water rates. They've got the purification as well as the desalination plant. So I know their rates are, again, desalination is just pricey, and so it's hard to quantify what that will look like.
I think there's lots of companies. We had on Ocean Well, who's working with some water agencies in Southern California, where they use propulsion from the bottom of the sea. They use a lot less electricity. We also had, there's new techniques in how to mine the water for rare elements and things of that sort. So I think with all the problems that we see and know of, people are working on what do you do with it? How do we overcome those things and take that? So I think that's going to be important in the future. It's coming faster than we know. It used to take 20 years to figure something like that out. Now it's like 6 months, and a lot of companies jumped into the industry to try to solve those things. And I think from some of the results I've seen, they're pretty good. So if you can justify spending the money to mine the rare elements out of the brine, and it's profitable for you, that offsets any of the costs. If you can put these pumps in the bottom of the ocean, thousands of feet deep, and the pressure does it by itself, you save money in electricity. I mean, all of those things, it creates a bad situation once, but then you solve that. And I think if we keep doing that, we'll be successful in that. I think it's going to happen quicker than we know, because we got a lot of people now jumping into this industry for that. And they need to do it. They need to do it. Otherwise, it's wasted water.
Well, the challenge always is scale, and how much can you scale up these technologies? Desalination. The plant that they built in San Diego does 50,000 gallons a day, or I can't remember the exact size. But it cost them $1 billion to build that plant, I believe, and it provides 7% of the region's water. And that's kind of where it gets tricky. So I kind of think that, yes, we probably will see more desalination as these technologies mature, but I still think that I don't think people are going to be able to afford to then take that desalinated water and water their lawns, or as we know in Southern California, and the cement and the gutter. I mean, it's going to be very pricey water, and I don't think people are going to be able to. I don't think the cost is going to come down so that people can water their lawns with it. I think we're still going to have to be careful with our water use.
I agree. I totally agree with that. It's just a different way. Look, you got countries like Israel who organize the way they do their watering, irrigation there, and people have, I think, more of a respect for water because of the cost of it, and they use it pretty wisely there. And I think it's just education and teaching people about it, because, at the end of the day, if you don't have water, we're not going to be here. Nothing's going to be here.
And it's my understanding that area is really quite a desert. probably not down by, the Mediterranean, but Israel is that area is very desert-like. And
Yep.
I think that, like, in Southern California, you can be, like, if we didn't have imported water in Southern California, then Southern California would probably look much like a desert too, not with sand dunes, but like when I lived in Santa Clarita, everyone had green lawns, but as soon as you look behind the houses to the hills, it was all dry brush.
Twin Hills of San Francisco, right?
Yeah, that's what would naturally be there, but we kind of live in this unnatural world in the Southern California area. And actually, really, to be honest, if you really are gonna be honest, then much of California is really we have done so much engineering of the environment that if we hadn't done it, California would look much different. Like the Central Valley would be a lake, the big Tulare Lake. It would fill up in the summer or fill up in the winter after the rains when it all melts down and dry up, and a very large lake. Southern California, we'd never be able to put all these people in Southern California without the imported water. So we've really changed things around in California, the environment. It's really quite unnatural, which is, and then the funny thing is that, we kind of tend to think of ourselves as being quite natural, but in our living place is not really.
Well,
That thought just entertains me. It's like a big, gigantic Hollywood set. It's all fake.
But it's California. That's all of this is just movie magic.
Exactly. And engineering magic.
Well, like I said, I think we're going to see in the near future a lot more technology coming out and trying to battle these problems that we see. Because we need as much water as we can get. And, if you read what climate people say is going to happen, where it's dry years again coming and staying, we got to do something. We got to be a little smarter on how we use water more efficiently. And, next people that are going to come on the show, we're going to talk about rules and regulations and things. And there's a lot of questions, that I have with that. People buy property and they have to go by the regulations of water, for example, what you can do for irrigation. And so they do it so the builders comply with that. What happens 3 to 5 years later or whatever when the people, the homeowners, want to sell their homes? Do they have to bring it back to that same standard? No, that's not a requirement yet, but I think it should be. Otherwise, it's just a futile thing that everybody has to do in the beginning, and then you forget about it afterwards. So hopefully that'll change. But we'll see. So what else is stimulating in California water this week, Ms. Alston?
Well, we're kind of, people are kind of a little curious about this SB 72 legislation that was passed and trying to figure out what exactly this means. The piece of legislation added some new requirements to the California Water Plan, and it requires things like DWR to undertake additional studies to determine what our future water needs are, and to set up future scenarios with water supply targets, and more studies about how much water we're going to need to meet all these water needs. It'll be interesting to see what the effect of this legislation is. I've been trying to kind of understand exactly what it means. Like when you set a target, the California Water Plan has no regulatory force. It's kind of an informational document about the state of the resources, water resources in all the regions, and what can you do, all the different options you have to address them. So I don't know what setting a target is going to do if it doesn't require anybody to then, make that target, reach that target. I mean, is it just that seems that it would potentially be just, another number.
Yes.
No one's required to reach that target. And if you were going to require people to reach that target, who would that be?
Yep. That is very
so
true.
A lot of questions. We'll have to see what if the answers come.
Well, we'll find out shortly. It won't take that long to find that out. But anyway, Chris, we thank you for coming on today, as you always do, and giving us the latest and greatest. And for our listeners, go to mavensnotebook.com, become a great subscriber to that, and get all your information. First thing in the morning, turn your PC on, it's there, or your laptop or your phone. It's a great way to get the information behind the scenes, what's going on. You can also become a sponsor of that, and that would be greatly appreciated to Maven's Notebook, and that's of your choice. And but it's a great way to stay on top of what's going on in the world with water. So we do appreciate that, Chris. And hope the weather is turning out to be good in your area, getting maybe a little colder. Time to get your sweaters on. Time to get your sweaters on and get comfortable and the fireplace going.
Not quite that far, but it's been nice and mild up here. Not like what I hear in Southern California with the Santa Ana winds and all.
Yeah, well, that happens. So anyway, Chris, we'll talk to you next week. We appreciate you stopping by.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
All right. Good evening. Just a quick announcement here before we go to a real commercial. So if anybody that's in the irrigation industry, landscaping industry, as a contractor, a distributor, a consultant, whatever, and you're looking for the latest in irrigation technology to level up your services, well, guess what? The 2025 Irrigation Show and Education Week has you covered. Hundreds of solutions will be on display from newly released products in the new product contest plaza, which is really good to go because you see stuff that little companies develop that all the big guys are going to want, and to breakthrough innovations in the Startup Showcase. So see it at December 8th through 11th in New Orleans. Explore now. Register at irrigationshow.org. So that's a good place to start off, and anybody's invited to go. It's a great show for even the homeowners. So anyway, hope to see you there, and we're going to have a few words from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with our featured guest.
KCAA. Are you presently part of the irrigation industry as a worker or business owner? Do you want to learn how you and your staff can boost your knowledge and productivity? Then you should check out Irrigator Technical Training School. Irrigator Tech is the leading source of quality instruction serving all facets of the irrigation industry. Their courses provide a basic, easy-to-understand approach that raises the skill level, competency, and professionalism of landscape and irrigation personnel through practical education and services. Irrigator Tech combines classroom and real-life hands-on training, leading to a well-recognized certification that both customers and employers demand. Irrigator Tech's specialized courses can help you quickly become a certified irrigation auditor or a certified installer, repair, maintenance, or backflow technician. Courses also include certificates in smart water application or becoming a certified tree worker. Most importantly, all certifications are state recognized, and Irrigator Tech offers annual renewal classes to help keep your certification up to date. So whether you work in California, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, or Arizona, there's an Irrigator Tech class near you. For more information on how to jumpstart your career, call Irrigator Tech toll-free 866-614-1755 or visit them on the web at irrigatortech.com. That's toll-free 866-614-1755 and on the web at irrigatortech.com.
We're on site today using the ProTrade milliamp clamp meter to do one of the key diagnostics for low voltage lighting. Hi, my name's Sean, one of the coaches on the Site 1 training team, and today we're looking at how to diagnose for secondary amperage. In order to do this, we've got to ensure our milliamp clamp meter is in the amp AC position. Our transformer is on, and we haven't exceeded our max output or secondary amp load of 25 amps. In order to do this, we take our clamp amp meter and place it around just one of our wire leads. Our reading will be indicated here. If we show up on future diagnostic opportunities and that reading is different, we know we've got a challenge on that wire run. Hope this gets you up and running quicker. For more information on any low voltage item or to pick up your milliamp clamp meter today, come into Site 1 or see site1.com.
All right, welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone. Thanks for tuning in and staying along with us. We have some great guests coming up, and I'm going to go by ladies first and introduce this Paulette McGee, and she's with the organization called ResNet. She's the program manager. We have Ryan Mires, who's a program director, and a Michael Matthews, who's the program engagement specialist. So welcome, people from ResNet.
Thank you.
And thank you. Thanks for joining us. We do appreciate that. And just to start off, because a lot of listeners may not know anything about what ResNet is or who it is, can you kind of brief description of what it does and why it was formed and when it was formed?
Yeah, ResNet is the Residential Energy Services Network. We're a 501c3 national nonprofit, started in 1995 with a mission of making energy usage transparent in the home buying and the mortgage underwriting process. ResNet's also an accredited standard development organization, so we create standards for evaluating energy, water, and carbon usage for all types of residential construction. And our flagship program is called the HERS Index, which is a rating for the energy efficiency of a home. Since 1995, there's been just under 5 million homes that have received a HERS rating across the U.S.
And what would that mean for a home buyer? Like, why would I care?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for a home buyer, it's really the HERS Index score is, the HERS H2O score. So HERS H2O is a water efficiency, a whole house water efficiency rating. It produces an index score typically ranging from 0 to 100, where a lower number, think golf, a lower number means less water usage. So, for example, if a home scored an 80, it would mean that home uses 20% less water than a typical home built to the codes and standards that were in effect in 2006. So 2006 is the reference home. It also means that the home has been inspected and tested both indoors and outdoors for water efficiency.
And what home would be eligible for that? Like, could I just go and take my house and go like, all right, HERS rating time?
Well, currently, new and existing single-family duplexes and townhomes qualify to participate in these programs. And then starting in 2026, these programs will include multifamily.
Oh.
Well, the question I have for you is, there's a lot of organizations that have different ratings. You have LEEDs, you have the National Association of Home Builders, you have WaterSense, you've got HERS. Why doesn't the organizations all talk to each other and make one standard?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. So HERS and HERS H2O are purely an asset-based rating. So it's about evaluating what is part of the home when the rating is done. And so, for example, like the LEED for Homes program actually would reference HERS for the energy efficiency component, and could reference HERS H2O for the water efficiency component. So many of the green building programs that are out there utilize HERS or HERS H2O as part of the requirements for their program. So those are comprehensive green building programs, whereas HERS is strictly evaluating energy efficiency, and HERS H2O is strictly evaluating water usage, and actually is it is the means for achieving the WaterSense label for homes. So WaterSense actually utilizes the ResNet standard 850 in order to create a performance-based pathway to achieving the WaterSense label for a home.
Okay.
So how many of these have been done in California?
So in California is actually the number 2 state right now. There's been just about 6,000 homes that have been rated with HERS H2O. All of those homes also achieve the WaterSense label as well. The number one state, the number 1 and number 3 states are your neighbors. Nevada comes in at number 1, around 7,500 homes, and Arizona just over 5,000 homes.
As long as I beat Robert, I think I'm okay. So I'll let Nevada take the lead.
Well, you know, I was talking with Chris Austin was on calling in. We were talking about regulations and things, and one of my pet peeves is, I believe, you know, I had my home checked for energy with HERS and passed it, and that it was great to sell a house and all that. But if it wasn't up to standard, say I go out and do it and it gets all certified and I do whatever we got to do to make sure it passes, what do I do when I want to sell a house and it's not the same way? No, but there's no restrictions for making that you have to go back and comply. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the rating is when the rating is done, that is the score for what was in place, what was, you know, in that home at the time it was rated. It doesn't take into account behavior, with the exception of estimating usage based on the number of bedrooms, which is used as a surrogate for the number of occupants that would be expected in the home. So there's not a requirement that it has to get re-rated, but a new homeowner could do that if they chose.
So it's the homeowner's choice at that point if they're buying a home that's been already on the market and been already HERS approved, that if they wish to continue that, they can do it. They can do it all over again, or not. That's what you're saying, correct?
Yeah, to the extent that you go ahead, Michael.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, that's typically the way it happens. You know, the homeowner, they're going to do what they're going to do while they're living there, but once they put it on the market, that, you know, improvement, that especially when there's an ROI involved in that improvement, they're probably going to stop unless, you know, a buyer comes along and says, well, we'll purchase this house if you give us an allowance for making some of these upgrades. But, you know, I've been talking to a lot of realtors recently, and they're starting to believe and turn the corner on convincing a current homeowner, to make some of these upgrades, and if nothing else, put an allowance in for replacing that 6-gallon toilet that's been in there since the 1980s, upgrading it to a new one, but let the new homeowner come in and choose. You know, and that is the nice thing about plumbing, where, you know, when you're considering insulation that's behind the walls, that's difficult to upgrade. But
right.
Plumbing fixtures, a lot of those, you know, I've scratched my knuckles quite a bit and banged my head doing plumbing. It's difficult, but it is something that you can do and something that really makes a big impact in, you know, when you move into that new home.
I know.
Somebody
Go ahead, Jerry.
I was just say, as somebody who just took out all their toilets themselves, yes, go me. It is heavy work, but it is not super complicated. And if I can do it, I feel like anyone can do it. What I really want to know is, how long does the inspection process take? Because it feels like it might take a while. I don't understand that part.
Yeah, it's actually fairly quick. The inspection process is typically most homes that get a HERS H2O rating are new construction, and so the inspection process is typically about 30 to 60 minutes. That includes testing flow rates, doing a pressure loss test. That's kind of on the indoors, verifying how far, you know, the length of plumbing between your hot water heater and your furthest fixture. And then on the outdoors, verifying the irrigation controller, the types of emitters, the amount of the amount of area that's being irrigated, that kind of thing. And then optionally, they can also conduct a flow rate test of the irrigation system as well. That's not a required test for the program, but if a builder has installed a fairly decent efficient irrigation system, they will get additional credit for a low flow rate on the system.
You know, the National Association of Home Builders, I'm on their water committee, and we wrestled one time with what should be the precipitation rate for spray nozzles. Some companies, the majority of them have them that go at 1.75 inch per hour, so some have that's 1 inch per hour. And the companies that couldn't meet the 1 inch per hour were kind of upset and didn't want that to become a standard because they couldn't meet it. In your personal view, you think that's a fair way to work with that, or should it be that if one company has the great technology, the others should be able to help develop something to match that? Because there's a big difference between 1 inch and 3/4 of an inch more an hour. Just a thought.
Yeah, it is a big difference. And the nice thing about the HERS H2O system is that we're agnostic as to what's installed, but a less efficient or a spray nozzle that puts out a lot higher volume of water is going to get a worse rating on that flow rate test. So in that essence, we are kind of picking products that are more efficient, which is the purpose of the rating system. But yeah, we're agnostic as to what's used. There's no prescriptive requirements of what types of nozzles you have to use. A lot of builders that participate in the program are using drip irrigation.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's very true. But there's all different kinds of drip, as you know. Some are pressure some are pressure compensated. Some have check valves. I mean, it's all different. Yep. And that's what I was saying with when a homeowner buys a home, and specifically for irrigation, you have heads, spray bodies that maybe they're subsiding into the dirt. They're supposed to be at ground level. You have lateral pipes that could break or crack. You have mowers that chop off the nozzles, and you get big gushers coming up because it doesn't have a check valve built in. And pressure compensation is a big deal now, that they want that in the bodies. So, I mean, all of those things are in place. And I know a lot of mow and blow guys, I'll use that, not what I call professional, big-time certified landscape contractors. They don't carry every kind of part in the world on their truck. So if something breaks, they just put on what they got. They don't match it, so it may be maybe 8-foot quarter, but it may not be the same manufacturer, and it may not operate the same way. But you have all of those things to consider. And I just get nervous when I went to look for homes. Naturally, since I work for an irrigation manufacturer, equipment manufacturer, I look at the irrigation. My wife thinks I'm nuts, but what do they got here? They got a Toro, they got a Hunter, they got a Rainbird. And I go through it, and she thinks I'm crazy because all she wants to know is what does the kitchen look like and how's the backyard looking. Those are the things that she goes for. I just worry that a lot of homes that I've seen that people have bought and they've lived there for 5 to 10 years, their irrigation system is not to par. And when you get home inspections, they really don't get down in the weeds. I hate to say that word, down in the weeds to see what the irrigation is. But I think that's an important factor.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, I think
my last home. Yeah, sorry, my last home. The actual controller, it was not functioning. The rain gauge was not functioning. So my last resort was to actually walk to the main valve and manually turn it off and turn it on as needed. Yeah. And I priced it, and it was too much for me to worry about fixing and replacing and repairing. So I left it as is. And when I sold that home, I don't know what the next homeowner is going to do either. But yeah, you're exactly right. There's a lot of different things to take into consideration there.
Yeah.
That home definitely had a 100+ home HERS rating.
Yeah. I'll add to that the outdoor component of HERS H2O is the biggest learning curve for builders. That's where they're struggling the most to reduce their water use and to be able to achieve. Most home builders are using HERS H2O in order to get the WaterSense label. What they really want is the WaterSense label, and they have to get a score of 70 or less. So basically a 30% reduction in water use. to get there, and they're really struggling on the outdoor component. I like to relate it to the way on the energy efficiency side. 20 years ago, it was really difficult to get insulation contractors to understand how to properly air seal the building envelope, and for mechanical contractors to properly seal up ductwork. It's very similar to that in terms of getting the irrigation trades to understand how to reduce the water use of their systems.
Well, with 70% of most water use being outside, I can only imagine that would be the fastest way to save water. I would think somebody would want to use really efficient sprinkler heads, maybe something with very little fine particles.
Yeah, and changing the market to get builders to do that is a difficult undertaking.
That's very true. That's extremely true. And a lot of contractors who look at blueprints and say this is what they want to put in, or they're told that's what was designed. They come in and cut corners a lot. They use variable nozzles, which use a lot of water versus a standard nozzle. There's all kinds of things to those, and I've seen it all, and I don't think it's going to change, but hopefully they do. What advantages does the HERS H2O water sense offer builders and developers? What can that do for them?
Yeah, a developer or a builder who's tracking their water use per home can actually provide a municipality or an area, a region that's making a decision if they're going to let and allow for development to occur. If they haven't adopted the HERS H2O as a region, then the developer who has been tracking that, they can go and show that they are using less water and less demand than, say, another builder, and that other builder may not be allowed to build there just simply on the basis of not knowing their water demand. So that data is power when the developer and that builder can go into a municipality and say, hey, look, if we build this 80 home development, this is the water demand that we're going to be adding to your utility. And that data is power. Any time you can go and say this is exactly what you can expect from this development, and you can forecast that way.
Yep. So they come up with the architect, landscape architect or irrigation designer comes up with a water budget for the vegetation and what they're going to use, whether it's going to be sprinklers, whether it's going to be drip, whether it's going to be whatever. And that has to be approved. But then you always have the as-built that a lot of people use. And it comes in a little different than it is, and sometimes it's accepted, sometimes it's not. So hopefully we have there's honest inspectors who go out and look at those things. Are there any? Go ahead, Sarah.
I was going to ask you the same question. We had great minds think alike. So I'm thinking if there's, we're obviously care about ROI here. So are there any incentives to kind of make them want to keep doing this?
Well, the incentives that are available are through the local water utilities, and they come in form of rebates, like for the specific water-efficient products, like WaterSense fixtures and toilets. And you can just contact your water district and find out if they also have a landscaping, reducing turf, and they pay X amount of cents if you remove like 60% of your turf. So there are programs all over the United States. You just have to go in and check them out in your area.
Well, I don't know if any of you people know or heard of Gina McCarthy. Does that ring a bell to anybody? She used to be in the Obama administration. She was in charge of the EPA, and yep. I had a meeting with her in Dallas one time. Nice lady, and I said, why can't an irrigation controller? It can be WaterSense certified. Why can't it be Energy Star rated? And they couldn't come up with an answer. Why not? Inside a controller, you have a microprocessor, you have an I/O port. You have RAM, ROM, everything that a laptop computer has. So in a sense, it is a computer. And I don't know if they would ever think I'm going to continue that discussion with Lee Zeldin. I've already started the conversation with him, because as if you have a smart controller, it only waters when you need to water. Thus, comparing it to a standard controller that I'm going to program it 30 minutes every other day, no matter what, and it runs 30 minutes every day, every other day. It saves power, especially in large complexes. If you go to master communities and you have a lot of common area property that runs off these central control systems, so you're saving water by running it appropriately and using the correct irrigation equipment. What do you think of something like that? Not too weird?
Yeah,
it's an interesting
Rob,
question.
I think you're probably just ahead of the curve. With a lot of the talk and chatter that's going on right now around the water and energy nexus. It takes water to create energy, and takes energy to
water,
like you were talking about earlier with desalinization. That takes a lot of energy. So as these things, as the house is a system, which is kind of what we're talking about here. The consumer demand, they're looking for those whole house solutions, and whether it's labeled Energy Star or WaterSense, as long as it's reducing that energy, I think that's ultimately the goal here.
Right.
Whether it's water reduction or energy reduction, but yeah, I think you're just ahead of the curve on that. It sounds like.
Oh. I know Tara has some more questions. Go ahead, Tara.
I was just going to say, I think we should create a home improvement standard together, because then we can have the his and hers situation going on.
Too many pronouns.
So that was sort of my wrap up for this, but go ahead, Robert.
No, another off-track question, because you guys are in the business with everything. So if the governor of California decided to name you three the czars of water and electricity, what would be the top three things that need to be fixed in each sector? Question that makes you go,
of water and electricity, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, electricity. I guess I would say on the water side, I think it's by far outdoor water use that has to be addressed. And I know that California's been moving in that direction with some new legislation recently. I think that's number one thing. Outdoor water use has to be better addressed. On the electricity and the energy side, California is actually doing quite well in terms of a stringent energy code. Moving toward all electric, I think, is the next step in that. But at the same time, ensuring that the electric grid is there to meet the demand of going to all electric, I think is even more important than the push to get to all electric, meaning primarily heat pump water heaters in place of gas.
Okay. I'll let my smart co-host follow up with any questions that she may have, and you guys have been great, and she's very smart too, so go ahead.
So I totally appreciate the outdoor water use issue. One of the things actually that I've heard kind of in that 2015 timeframe when we were really struggling with drought and really struggling with water in California was the idea that if we could just end water waste, we actually wouldn't need to completely change how our front lawns look. And if we just address leaks, address the toilet leak, address the water waste out of the faucet, address all of those tiny things, and address the irrigation system leaks, which are some of the biggest leaks in our pool leaks, those kinds of things, then we would actually be able to have lawn again. But we can't seem to prioritize that in our minds because we're so focused on water conservation versus water use efficiency. What are your thoughts on that kind of paradigm?
Yeah. So absolutely. To reducing the waste is absolutely critical. Making sure that irrigation systems don't turn on when it's raining is a pretty basic first step, I think. So yeah, I would agree with that. Reducing waste gets us a long way to reducing overall water use, and not always using potable water for things that don't need potable water.
Well, in the 20 seconds we got left, how do they reach you guys to find out more about HERS and ResNet?
Yeah, we're on
ResNet.us.
Okay, cool.
ResNet.us, for those who didn't hear.
Okay. We're not meaning to cut you off, but NBC is going to cut us off because this is your news hour, so we got to go. Anyway, we thank you for doing this, and we appreciate it, and hope we'll get our listeners calling in and get you some more more information about what ResNet is and what they can do for you. Appreciate you tuning in, and you guys, Mark, Michael, Ryan, Paulette, you guys are awesome. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Unknown participant is now exiting. Unknown participant is now exiting. Unknown
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the